Hey YouTube, how you doing? Welcome to the fucking show. We're going to go ahead and jump into the China news. I should probably avoid swearing immediately. I believe the algorithm, Roblox is you if you swear in the first like 10 minutes of the video. I heard that somewhere. It's a rumor probably. Anyway, we're going to jump into our China news here. Let's get the beats going. Where the fuck's my beats? Where my beats at? Yeah, forgot about this mix. This is the PlayStation Jungle Mix 01 by Rylan Kirshnoff. He's cool. He even liked my comment in his YouTube, so you know he's a cool YouTube creator because he actually goes through his comment section and likes some of the comments, which is always appreciated, you know. Always nice to be like, oh, the creator saw it. Oh. It's nice, right? Try to be nice to people. Speaking of being nice, look who's feeling charitable. Look who's coming to the aid of Palestine. Guys, isn't this amazing? Just out of the goodness of their heart, China's well known for, you know, discouraging any kind of apartheid or anything, you know, any kind of, you know, taking a whole population and imprisoning it. Yep. Eventually I'm going to do one of those streams about history. I keep saying, I think I'm going to do like World War Tuesday and like World War Monday for like World War One, because there's so much good content that I want to show people. And then throughout the rest of the week, do all, you know, all these other wars that are never talked about. But there's so much World War I and II content that it's like, God, it'd be so cool to, like, you know, show this to everybody, right? All right, anyway, I got to stay focused here on the China news. Xi Jinping says China supports Palestine with 1967 borders. And of course they're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. Chinese leader calls for granting Palestine full membership in the United Nations. I love this. I love this. It says Beijing supports the two-state solution of the establishment of a Palestinian state on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. Don't you get it? Don't you see what he's doing? This is amazing. This is amazing. Oh, man. This is one clever motherfucker right here. This is one clever motherfucker right here. I love this. Okay, look, if you don't know what the fuck's going on, you're like, what the fuck is this guy laughing about? Isn't this good news? Of course, it's kind of good news. It's kind of bad news. It's kind of hilarious news. Okay, so here's what's going on. China doesn't give a shit about the Palestinian people. But this is a great way. This is a great way to really stick it to the United States. By supporting Palestine, by making a lot of noise about Palestine, by pointing out that Palestine is being oppressed by Israel, who is being supported by the United States. This takes, you know, this is an attempt to take the wind out of the sails of the pro-Ukrainian, you know, pro-Western alliance, right? This is an attempt to do that, okay? So this is brilliant. This is brilliant, right? Because by being vocal and outward with their support and using like their money and their resources to support Palestine, they can basically point out how incredibly hypocritical the United States is in supporting Ukraine and then supporting Israel in their oppression of the Palestinian people. Isn't that brilliant? It's fucking Xi Jinping over here, man. And you know what? It also shows that, you know, China is completely aware of how authoritarian they are and how authoritarian other countries are and what the actual reality is, right? Because when they need to, look at them acknowledging a reality that most governments have the hardest time ever acknowledging, right? The elephant in the room, Palestine. Oh yeah, I guess they should exist. Maybe, I don't know. Should they exist? I don't know. Is it up to Israel now? I guess I don't know. Right? That's great. All right, let's read a little bit more into this. But that's what's going on, basically, is that China sees this as an opportunity to call out the United States empire's obvious hypocrisy. They're incredibly hypocritical when it comes to many things. We point that out many times. Unlike some other streams, Dylan and Vosh, who kind of avoid the fact that, because like it's a big pushback against the hyperbolic tankies on social media and in Twitter and other places, where they're like, oh, the U.S. isn't, the CIA is basically running the whole world, and they're, everything is the CIA's fault and NATO's fault, and it's a pushback against that, but they're going too far. They're lacking nuance in their critique of the United States empire when they're like rah 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 Slava Ukraine, which. I don't say Slava Ukraine. I like to say glory to the Ukrainian democracy, because I like to be very clear that the reason why I support helping Ukraine is because I support democracy. And it's not because I support the United States empire. And I don't think Slava Ukraine means that. But what I'm trying to avoid is a call to blind nationalism, by saying glory Ukraine. It's like, well, I respect cultural borders, I respect societies, and I respect countries as they're defined and all that. But really, what's more important to me is democracy, right? I really don't care about. I don't care as much about one's cultural identity when it comes to. I'm not saying this correctly. I'm fucking this up because I do care about cultural identity, but it's just like when it comes like in my list of priorities, my number one priority is liberty and democracy. And then my third priority is respecting, respecting nationalism, and like respecting, societal norms, cultural norms, ceremonies, and all these different things, and wearing big funny hats and wearing big funny costumes for different ceremonies and respecting all that. Perfectly fine with all that stuff, right? But you start killing other people. Because your funny hat is better than their funny hat, we got a serious problem. That's what I'm trying to get at, and I did a terrible job explaining it. But the basic gist is when you start using your nationalism to justify, enlarging your country, invading another country, killing people of your own country or someone else's country, then I no longer respect your nationalism. Welcome back, Davey, and welcome back, Leon, by the way. Number one priority is the big gay agenda, which Xi Jinping is very, very concerned about, if you know what I mean. Oh, he Winnie the Pooh, baby. President Xi Jinping has expressed China's support for end to Israeli occupation of Palestine territories and voiced frustration over the quote-unquote historical injustice suffered by Palestinians. I love this. I love this. Oh, this is so good. Look, I'll take it. I will take it. Whatever it takes for Palestine to get a fucking fair break here, right? Palestine has been the toilet of Israel for far too long, and Israel's all cocky, turning their whole society into a bunch of, hyper nationalists. Like, we need to literally eradicate these people, and that's the government that's in charge. We are very likely going to see with this new right-wing government an attempt to basically finish this project of conquering the Palestinian land, putting the Palestinians into ghettos, or if some got their way, like literally exiling the Palestinians. And the idea is just to send them to Europe, because Europe apparently takes in all these migrants. The whole thing could turn into a massive disaster on the U.S. taxpayers' dollar. Okay. With the U.S. media in a very, very tricky situation, because they'll lose ad money, and a lot of the people that are higher up in that organization fully support Israel and support Israeli nationalism. I'm not saying Jewish cabal. Calm down, everybody. Okay, there's plenty of Christians and atheists and everyone else that does exactly what the Jewish lobby tells them to. Because they understand that how powerful the Jewish lobby is. Because I'm not being anti-Semitic and conspiratorial here. There is a Israeli Jewish lobby that has an incredible amount of power in the United States. They use that power to convince politicians that Israel is very important. And but very easily you could go. See how easy it is, right? For for a split second, you'd think I was Nick Fuentes, right? Like, oh, there he is. There is an Israeli lobby though. They are very powerful. There it is. See, there it is. Ah, shit. I got to. There's nothing I can do, right? No, they got you by the balls. I either accept the illusion that the Israeli lobby doesn't have all this power, or I have to, or I acknowledge it, and they can call me an anti-Semite and clip me out of context, and that's it. They got you by the balls on this. Yep, this is Kanye. By the way, this is a China video, but it's about Palestine. But look, what I was getting at though is I will take it. I will take it. If it means the U.S. if this is what it means, bleach Kanye. If this is what it means the United States might have to apply pressure to Israel for the first time in forever to, hey, slow down on the old Palestinian genocide. It's making our Ukrainian project look a little stupid. Right? So that and that actually might result in Palestinians getting treated like human beings for a couple more years until Israel finally finishes its project. Shut logic. Do you agree with Elon Musk's tweets? No, of course not. No, it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't like Anthony Fauci. I thought he was a terrible communicator, and I thought he often contradicted himself, and he was also caught lying about PPE. And I thought it was a terrible idea for Joe Biden to keep him in the administration, right? I thought it was totally stupid for Joe Biden should have purged every one of Trump's appointees, like every one of Trump's, old cabinet, anyone who's associated with him, but he didn't. He kept Fauci on. With that said, I still wear a mask. I recommend we wear masks because not only are we still dealing with COVID in its latest iteration, it's evolved from Omicron since then, but we're also dealing with an RSV outbreak. It's a respiratory disease that's very similar to COVID. And there's still a lot of things unknown about long COVID symptoms that are really quite frightening. So the idea that Fauci is a tyrant because he mandated masks in certain areas and the mandates were actually very, very light. You were never actually truly forced by the government to take a vaccine, right? Mask usage, though, is no big fucking deal. Oh, you did, huh, Frederick? Well, there you go. Are you a doctor? Are you a scientist? Can you show me proof of the study that was done on you that proves that claim? He didn't and no, I don't agree with that overreaction either. Fauci didn't legit contradict himself every week. Fauci did not legit contradict himself every week. It was like every month. And Davey, he's not forcing you to do anything. So, I can't wear a mask. I'm such a big, tough guy. I can't wear a mask. Oh, I'm so tough, but I can't wear a mask. Oh, no. Fuck off. It's the littlest fucking thing in the world. You don't even have to wear the mask all the time. Yeah, okay. All right. Moving on. Thank you very much, dumbasses. Back to China here. I'm going to have to edit this entire part out. Xi called for granting Palestine full membership in the United Nations and said Beijing supports the two-state solutions of the establishment of a Palestinian state in the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. See the people you agree with, Davey? Look at the people on your side with your fucking anti-mask, anti-vax nonsense. Davey, we've all accepted that COVID is part of our lives. That doesn't mean that masks don't work and that vaccines don't work. This claim that, oh, I think the vaccine did this to me. I think the vaccine made me fat. Get the fuck out of here, man. Get the fuck out of here. You, go. Gone. You, gone. Yeah, I get it. You're over masks, but you know, there's man, what's the fucking really? We got to do this, huh? There's just nothing we can do about all these fucking deaths. Really? There's just nothing we can do, man. Really? We just got to let it happen. I'm over it. I'm over masks. These people are dead, man. We got one of the worst flu outbreaks happening. We got an RSV outbreak, and COVID's still here. And we got dumbasses like you still talking about, oh, I'm a tough guy. I don't need a mask. I watch Joe Rogan eat elk meat, smoke cigars. Yeah, I'm a big tough guy. Yeah, okay. As long as you're not judging other people, and supporting politicians that shit on simple preventative measures that could be taken and suggested, that's fine. You want to be Mr. Tough Guy? That's fucking fine. Okay? But this idea that people like Fauci are tyrants and, oh no, wham, forcing me to wear a mask, fuck off. Okay? The fucking health department, CDC, it's their job to recommend what they suggest. And that's what they suggest based off fucking science, man. It's not Fauci's feelings. So I'm just absolutely sick of it. Sick of the fucking stupidity, the ignorance, the narrative. Oh, I'm over it. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? Some pithy hand wave away? That's all I ask. That's all I ask, Davey. Right? Is that you just don't buy into this ridiculous narrative that Fauci was some, tyrant. Ridiculous. If anything, the government should have been mailing us PPE. Right? We had to pay for all of our shit. Ridiculous. South Korea, you got a fucking care package. Right? Just sick of this nonsense. Hunter Biden, Fauci shit. It's all complete made up bullshit. While the motherfucking world is burning, while the goddamn walls of this goddamn democracy are collapsing, you got these dickheads over here gaslighting about Fauci and Hunter Biden. It's a complete fucking insult to my intelligence. But like I said, he's a terrible fucking communicator. Should have been fired day one in Joe Biden's administration. He was hired by Trump. Xi's visit to Saudi Arabia is his third journey outside of China since COVID-19 pandemic. He arrived on Wednesday in Saudi Arabia in his first trip to the kingdom since 2016. On the third and final day of his visit, Xi said he considered the Chinese-Arab summit a defining event in the history of Chinese-Arab relations. Relations between the two are based on mutual interest and peace and harmony, he said. So yeah, once again, this is China being very intelligent, actually being very smart, and using, they don't, like I said, they don't care about the Palestinian people. They're using this as an opportunity to stick a thumb in the United States' eye, and I'm perfectly okay with that because the apartheid state that Israel is implementing in Palestine is a crime against humanity, needs to end immediately, should have ended decades ago. It is one of the most disgusting examples of what's, the United States' military meddling and the damage that it can do, right? Because let's not get it twisted. Israel exists as a military satellite in the Middle East so that the United States has quick strike ability against what it deems as its most powerful enemies, Iran, a few others. That's why it's there. That's why it enjoys support. They take all the money we give them, and they use it to corrupt our own politics back here with their Israeli lobbies, making politicians bend the knee. Literally passing laws that says, you're not allowed to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel in the land of the free. I'm not allowed to boycott. You can boycott these nuts, Israeli lobby. So I'm no fan of China. We all know that. If you've tuned in for 5 seconds, you've seen that. I'm no fan of China. But whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. If it takes a bad actor, authoritarian government to use Palestine to stick the thumb in the eye of the United States, but hey, we're talking about Palestine, and now the United States has, global pressure from its allies to pressure Israel to chill out on Palestine. Okay, I'll take it. I'll fucking take it. Last little bit of China news here. China's island expansion in the Pacific has U.S. freaked out. So I don't hear any commentators talking about this. I don't hear anybody talking about this, but you the mask guy, right? Yeah, I guess I used to be. No one really understood what I was trying to do with the mask, so I had to take it off and change the name. No one understood what I was trying to achieve as the nihilist, so I had to change my name to abandon nihilism and take my mask off. But yes, I'm the mask guy. China's island expansion. So here's the thing, guys, is that this is actually quite frightening. China is using this new strategy of literally creating land masses in an effort to further conquer the ocean around it, and to lay claim to vast swaths of ocean and area that they didn't have claim to before. And it's kind of a new way to like conquer the earth. And China is spearheading it. I don't think anybody's talking about it. So I wanted to show this. This video just popped up just today. It's fresh off the presses from the infographic show, which is always entertaining. So I thought I would show it because no one is really talking about this situation here in China, about how they're kind of trying to take over large chunks of land, and just by creating islands. Can you imagine?
The year is 2013. Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, has just seen the plans to transform some...
Oh, Davey's asking how China would react if the U.S. would build an island of their own near Taiwan. Oh, I think they would be very sensible, and they would... The question is, to me, I think we could get away with it, because with all their bluster, all their threats and bluster and chest puffing, at the end of the day, China desperately needs the economy to be working correctly right now, especially right now. It's kind of a house of cards right now with that Chinese economy. And honestly, I wouldn't take their threats seriously. So I think they would bitch and moan and complain, but ultimately it would be business as usual, because as much as they're sacrificing their own economy because of this zero COVID thing, I don't think they're willing to completely crash their economy by like, oh, if you do this, we're done, working with the United States and working with the dollar. Like, I don't think they're really in a position to do that economically, to drop using the dollar and all that. It's a symbiotic relationship, really, because there was this, China has a lot of U.S. debt, no doubt, but their entire economy is not entire economy, but a big chunk of their economy, and they're trying to diversify away from the United States, but a big reliable chunk of their economy is exports to the United States, and cutting that off, or even threatening to cut that off would probably, it would be like a game of chicken, right? It'd be like a game of chicken. So it's the U.S. Both sides would suffer. Yeah. But who would and then you would get into the game of who would suffer more. And, I guess I would roll the dice and say, the United States would come out on top of that. Like real V for Vengeance. Yeah, kind of, maybe. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. There was a little bit of the global. I don't really remember the plot to that anymore. I went back and watched some clips. Yo, that shit is cringy, dude. We thought that shit was so fucking cool. It's a bit cringe.
Some scattered reefs in the South China Sea into a fortified concrete island, complete with its own hospital, an airstrip, and a military base. Seemingly out of nothing, China will build a base from where strategic bombers can be based and fly thousands of miles from. This could be a stroke of a brush that paints the picture of the end of human civilization. If you think that sounds crazy, you may change your mind when you get to the end of the show. China has been very busy building more artificial islands like this, while much of the world has been looking the other way.
I love the animation of like inside the Pentagon, like, China just built another island. They're like running through the hallways.
China's Great Wall of Sand has been taking shape. This has caused many sleepless nights for folks in Washington. Before we get into the many reasons for the sleepless nights, let's look at this Great Wall of Sand. First named that by a U.S. admiral, the island we just mentioned in the intro is called Fiery Cross Reef. That's what it used to be, just a scattering of reefs. There was nothing there, but then that all changed. In 2013, China decided it was time to transform the place along with other land dotted around the South China Sea.
Crazy.
In 2014, between the months of August and November, Chinese dredgers got busy moving a lot of sand around Fiery Cross Reef. Then came the concrete trucks to cover the sand. The end product was an island about 3,000 meters long and 300 meters wide.
Crazy.
It wasn't long until Chinese people were in their living rooms watching China Central Television and being told about this state-of-the-art military island from where H-6K strategic bombers could take off. Brimming with pride, they were told there was a hospital there, but more importantly, military installations home to early warning radar systems and various weapon systems. China had created a monster in the South China Sea, and many more monsters would follow. If you went to Fiery Cross Reef today, you'd find garrisons that house something close to 200 troops. Some of them work with surveillance technology, some of them are weapons experts.
What are they doing?
In 2016, China landed passenger planes there, one from China Southern Airlines and another from Hainan Airlines. This is not an island anyone will be visiting on their vacation. The tests were merely to see what kind of large aircraft could safely land there. There are presently enough hangars to store 24 combat aircraft and 4 much bigger planes.
See,
as we told you, the run...
It's nothing. That's nothing. This is like literally the entire island is like literally one bombing raid, and the whole thing is gone. Okay, this is not a military threat. Okay, this is about territorial control.
Way is now long enough to accommodate one of China's Shan H-6N bombers. One of these beasts could take off from the island and perform combat operations as far as 3,500 miles away. The planes are capable of being refueled in the air and can fire air-launched cruise missiles. The CIA has been watching the development of these planes for decades because of their nuclear weapon-carrying potential. In 2019, the CIA heard that the newest rendition of the H-6N could carry the mother of all bombs. This is the most powerful non-nuclear bomb in the world. That might be worrying for the US, but it's just as worrying for other countries that are close to the island. This Great Wall of Sand that China has been building includes islands and areas that are disputed. In the Spratly Islands, China, Vietnam, Taiwan, Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei all lay claim to some of the land. Just about every single bit of land has 2 or more countries saying it belongs to them.
Whoop-de-doo. And this is what I mean. This is what I mean about the toxicity and dangers of nationalism. Who fucking cares, right? Like, it literally means nothing to nobody except some fuckers in a suit. You know? And like, and these guys, oh yeah, we'll go to war for this shit. Really? Fuck you.
Rather contested part of the world, so when China started building artificial islands on top of reefs and sticking military installations there, other countries didn't exactly look the other way. China's been making hay while its economy shines, creating these islands out of virtually nothing, and then bringing in anti-aircraft weapons and anti-missile systems, plus all kinds of surveillance tech. China is militarizing.
Davey's curious about China's actual combat effectiveness because we really haven't seen them, you know. I have a feeling that they would have a lot of lessons to learn, especially if they went up against U.S. military proper. But that is something to say that with all the United States is meddling in the Middle East and Vietnam and, you know, and in Ukraine, our army, our military does have technically much more combat experience than China, you know, who is, you know, doubling and tripling their military budgets, but they're not really militarily meddling anywhere, really. I mean, here and there, you know, a couple places, but they're not really, you know, China hasn't really, you know, has China lost troops on a battlefield since World War II? You know, probably very few. That is interesting. And it would be, I hope we never find out, but it would be fascinating to see this super high tech, super, you know, because like they're super full of themselves. They think they are the fucking greatest, right? And they would hit that tidal wave of reality pretty hard, and the end result might be interesting. I do think though that Chinese people are very intelligent, and you know, just like every human being is very intelligent, And I think, yeah, it would be a rude awakening, but they would probably adapt quite quickly, especially if the conflict was incredibly serious. So I'd be curious to see it, but I also don't want to see it because I don't think World War II or World War III is very cool.
The sea, which you'll soon understand is not A-OK with the USA. The Philippines wasn't happy when China started to reclaim a place called Mischief Reef. Again, China sent in dredgers to suck up the sand and build a base, and then it concreted the base. What has been a series of reefs was suddenly home to a harbor and a runway. If you look closely, you can see anti-aircraft weapons and missile defense systems.
So yeah, they're going to put a nuke there. Of course they're going to put a fucking nuke there. Oh, no, they're not going to put a nuke there then? Okay, come on.
The island also hosts soldiers and barracks and has an 8,900 feet long runway. Then there's China's disagreement with Taiwan over the Itueba Island, which is also part of the Spratly Islands.
Look at this
Satellite photographs show that right now there are armed soldiers there. A runway also has been built, along with radars and missile sites. But guess what? They aren't Chinese soldiers, they're Taiwanese soldiers. Those are Taiwanese weapons. As you know, China thinks Taiwan is part of it, but the Taiwanese would beg to differ. The Taiwanese people will tell you with a proud heart that they definitely ain't part of China. China calls Itueba Taiping. But get this, the Philippines and Vietnam also claim this island to be part of their country. One of the reasons is that the island lies not far from the fisheries and shipping lanes. There's oil and natural gas nearby, so there's an economic consideration too when arguing over these islands.
I'm trying,
It's not
man.
just about projecting military power. But perhaps more importantly, the islands are close to trading routes for the U.S., said to be worth hundreds of billions of dollars to the American people. China has decided to reclaim many of the islands, so it's not surprising that Taiwan, a U.S. ally, has stuck soldiers and weapons on Itueba. The fight over these places has gone on for decades, sometimes involving bloodshed. But it was really only in 2013 that China started transforming them into strategically useful military installations. The New York Times wrote not too long ago, despite claims of ancient historical links, Chinese officials in the first half of the 20th century were barely aware of the shoals and cays that make up the Spratlys until France annexed 6 of them, including Itueba. China is well aware of them now. These days, the islands are of utmost importance, and this has started to set off alarm bells for the Pentagon, not just around Asia. Take, for example, a place called Woody Island, the largest of the Paracel Islands, also in the South China Sea. Like the other islands, this place was not very significant in the past. It was just a bit of wild area that China, Vietnam, and Taiwan all thought was their own. Since 1956, China has claimed that they own the island. Nonetheless, the mega construction didn't start there until fairly recently. The island now has a large airstrip, military barracks, and weapon systems. It even has a bank. About 1,500 Chinese folks live there at any given time. The place has 2 or 3 artificial harbors where very large ships can dock. These ships could carry massive amounts of cargo, meaning that resupplying the island with weapons and supplies is easy. The runway can be used by bombers and every 4th-generation fighter plane China has. As you probably know, China has many highly advanced fighter planes these days. The stockpile keeps getting bigger and China keeps building runways for them. The U.S. has been watching from a distance as the number of weapons increases. The New York Times wrote in 2016 China had put an HQ-9 surface-to-air missile system on the island. Soon after,
yeah, the United States might actually have to put their foot down, you know. It sounds so elitist and privileged to say that, right? But in this grand game of geopolitical chess, this is China basically forcing the West's hand in a way. Whether I agree with it or not, the United States will see this as provocation and will try to act, and try to stop this, because they certainly can't have China just literally creating islands out of nothing and then turning them into military bases. I mean, we almost started World War III over this in Cuba. And like I said, I'm not justifying any of it. I'm just saying the cold, harsh reality is that the United States will see this as a reason to respond.
After it reported that Shenyang J-11BH fighter aircraft were seen there. It goes without saying that what China does on such islands is not always open for global and public consumption, which is why the U.S. has for years been surveilling the area as much as has been possible. Woody Island serves as an HQ for China in this area and gives the country considerable strategic power in the region. Vietnam is a country only too aware of this, as it's close by. China has started sending passenger planes to the island, and folks have been vacationing there or even getting married there. But experts say this is only about China trying to make the place look less like a militaristic joint that it is. Also, by turning it into an economic zone, it becomes harder for anyone to kick China out.
Yeah.
Anyone would think China was preparing for war. But let's remember, China is like any other country in the world. Its main goal is to survive. It wants to maintain its power and sovereignty, and to do that, it needs those trade routes. Having power in this area means also having access to oil and gas, which China needs to have for its economy to remain stable. The U.S., meanwhile, arguably wouldn't be too upset if China's economy failed, even if the two nations do so much trade together. We'll come back to power politics soon. We very much doubt China would launch any attacks from these islands without a very big reason, but it sure wants to remain a force to be reckoned with in the area, as do some other Asian countries who have rightly...
they don't need to fire a missile for these to have a major political effect.
Accuse China of breaking international law when it comes to creating those islands.
True. No.
The Philippines...
I mean, and Davey's pointing out that the U.S., doesn't need these islands. No, of course we don't need these islands. But it's like I said before, it's not about territorial. I mean, it's not about who owned it first, or who's. It's obvious what it is. It's kind of it's a hack. It's a workaround, right? To allow them to claim more territorial, control over trade routes, fishing, all this oil, all this shit, right? So they can lay claim and say, well, if you want it, you got to go through China. It's shrewd, and the United States will have to respond to this in some way.
Actually took China to court for breaking the rules, and it won. This was about fishing and food security in the Philippines, not really military stuff, although the Philippines, it must be said, is allied with the U.S. It also allied with China, which is why some pundits say it plays both sides. The Philippines asked the Obama administration for help over China's occupation of the Scarborough Shoal, but no help came, even though U.S. officials condemned China's actions. Critics have said the U.S. verbally admonishing China was not enough. Action needed to be taken against China. Not long after, the leaders of the Philippines turned away from the warm embrace of the U.S. and went for drinks and cigars in China's backyard.
There you go.
Agreements were made between the two nations. China came out smiling.
Wow, another Obama failure. No one talks about this one.
And the Philippines was told Chinese investments were coming its way. China has yet to build military infrastructure on the Scarborough Shoal, though. As the shoal is located only about 217 miles from the capital, Manila, China knows better than to put weapons there. But it's just good to have access to the area. Shipping lanes are like roads paved with gold. But more importantly, if China were to have a conflict with, say, the superpower of the world, having control of these shipping lanes would be absolutely crucial. Most Asian countries don't want to upset the economic behemoth of China, or at least a good number of Asian countries don't.
I totally agree, Clam. Clam Slammer 69 over here with the fucking Disney avatar. Gross, and gross. Says that they welcome a multipolar world. One group of people should not hold all the power. And I totally agree. I talk about that all the time.
That's because they're also survival machines. They're doing what they think is best for them. It should also be said that when it comes to disputes, China has a lot of sway within what's called the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. China often throws its weight around, but that's hardly surprising.
Bro, what is this animation? Chill.
The U.S. also wants to protect its shipping lanes in the region, so this is a turf war that in the very worst-case scenario could trigger a real war. Every country involved is just looking after its own interests.
After China news, we have India leading into U.S. Then we're going to cover some Kosovo news, Brazil, Turkey, EU, and then Ukraine. I don't have hundreds of clips for all these. It's basically two clips per tab. So,
but China is being
then then the rest of it's in Ukraine.
Rightly blamed for wanting a bit too much. Still, it is threatened in this area. After all, the U.S. has lots of allies in the vicinity. Let's just add here that
it sucks that it's the default is that if it sucks though, right? Because all right, never mind.
It's thought that the trade that goes through the South China Sea is worth about $4.4 trillion. That's about a third.
The United States is assumed an enemy of China. That's what I'm trying to say.
If U.S. ships could control these shipping lanes with its giant navy, it could almost certainly bring China's economy to its knees if it chose to. It would cause massive suffering in China, but it would also cause global economic turmoil, so it's not as if the U.S. would ever take such an action without there being some pretty hardcore circumstances.
Not succeeding.
And we'll talk more about that soon. Check out embarrassing tweets.
Yeah. Anyway, there you go, folks. There you go, YouTube. Thank you so much for coming in. Like and subscribe. Check out the description. Like and subscribe me on Twitch where it's relevant, where it matters. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.